post COVID-19, it's going to be how many people do you want to put in an elevator? Is it 3? Is it 4? And we're giving buildings that option so they can properly strategize for moving people as more and more people go back to work. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so in residential buildings, as of today, we're still limiting guests and services until later in the phases. So cleaning services and other than
is now joining
will be put on hold until later in the phase 3 and phase 4. And also, like I said, our biggest complaint on the residential side is people careful about an elevator, not even else. That person gets in an elevator and they're like, no, I don't feel comfortable. I want to go by myself. So it's been a struggle for us to try to help building owners and managers to try to move people efficiently without and keeping people safe at the same time. So having said that, we are working with buildings on signage, placement of people inside the cab. As you've seen, people put those footprints inside the cab so you can move 2 or 3 people. You stand over here, the next person will stand in the back or the side of the cab, and we can safely move people. So talking about the New York business and with the elevator companies, most elevator companies in the US are still furloughing employees. So they didn't want to lay people off, so they reduced their work hours to 32 hours a week. And that kept everybody working and kept the service department going. Modernization was a tough go when it started because most modernization jobs did shut down, but since they were considered essential, it was on a job-by-job basis. So we let modernization continue. So the thought process there was jobs that were going on, the city let the elevator company finish, and then all new modernizations were halted and shut down until about a few weeks ago. Construction has resumed, luckily in New York City, so construction is back online, but we have new strict guidelines. Also, we have to have washing and sanitizing stations. Everyone needs to wear masks, gloves, and other PPE items, and they have to have it on at all times. And in construction sites, it's the owner of the building's responsibility to provide the necessary PPE to all its employees. Okay, so that's the 30,000-foot view since we're so young into this phase 1. So that's all we have right now on the US and the New York City guidelines. We should have more in a few weeks, but right now I want to turn it over to my colleague, Bruce Anderson, who's going to highlight 2, I think, very beneficial things: cab sterilization for cabs to move air around inside the cabs, and voice activated buttons. So Bruce, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Michael. All right, the 2 main ways, as we all are very familiar now, that the COVID virus is transmitted. It's going to be coming in contact with some contaminated surfaces, and then, of course, getting it through airborne contact. The key to the whole thing is constant disinfecting, and as we're learning here, as we're ramping up these buildings, obviously, the more people you go through, the more disinfecting you need to do, which is then also taking its toll on the overall equipment. So again, as people come back to work, they have to make sure they wear their face masks, keep your cow distant apart. That was actually a picture that was taken from a building in the middle of Jersey City, which they probably are miles from a cow, but you have to stay 6 feet apart, which is difficult to do in an elevator. So we have to look for other alternatives. Or again, you'll be riding in an elevator by yourself, which will completely destroy the building traffic and create traffic jams throughout the whole building. I had the opportunity yesterday to go and see a new product. It's actually available, but it needs to be ordered, and is probably about a 6-week lead time to get them. It's a voice-activated elevator. It works similar to that of Siri or Alexa, and we have a quick video that I took yesterday at the job, and we'll give it a listen, and you'll see how it works.
Elevator, take me to G.
Okay.
Okay, so now that is not what the finished product is going to look like. The finished product is going to be much smaller, and it could be built into the car station if you were doing a modernization maybe and you wanted to bring it in as part of the package. Or they are going to make a much cleaner, nicer box. They just didn't have it in time for yesterday's demo. In addition to putting that in the car, you can also put that in the hallway. So as you walk up to the elevator, you wake the elevator up by saying elevator, and then you give it the command like, take me up, and the elevator will press the up button and take you to, then you get in the car and you tell it where you want to go. This is good because it can be added to any controller. Doesn't matter. They claim it doesn't even matter the age or the type. And it also does not affect your or your codes, because the fire service, all the buttons still remain active. You can still press the button and go where you want to go. And, you know, so you meet your ADA, and your fire service, if you have a fire, phase 2 is fully active. The fire department presses buttons. They don't need to speak. They don't need to do any of those items. Right now, they're figuring the cost of these units to be somewhere around, for the car, is going to be somewhere between $2,500 to $3,100, depending on the number of stops. That's in US dollars. And then in the hallway, if you want to add it to the hallway, it's going to be about $1,500 per floor, because the unit is very similar that has to go in the hallway. And then on top of that, you have to figure your elevator vendor has to install them. They're figuring probably somewhere on the order of about 4 hours per unit that you install. So you're going to have costs from your elevator vendor. But it is a viable solution, and it does work. The next idea, going back to the way this virus is airborne, what we did a lot of investigation, and there's a company in actually out of the Bronx in New York, and they're manufacturing a cab sanitization system. Basically, the way it works is it's going to, as you'll see in this drawing here, it's got a very large blower fan that's going to suck the air in and run it through a filter, a series of filters. It enters through a Hepa filter, and then to hold it in the box area longer, there's a second Hepa filter that it's got to pass through. So it actually slows the air down and traps it in the box, where a UVC germicidal light bulb attacks the air. And the company has made claims, and I guess they will have to provide those claims as to how well and effectively it disinfects the air. And what it does is it runs the air back down and feeds it into the bottom of the elevator cab. This is a very high speed motor, so it's designed to turn in a typical
Unknown participant is now joining.
In a typical size elevator cab, it's designed to turn the air over anywhere from 2 to 3 times in a minute. So it's moving a lot of air. Now, the cons to that is people are walking in from the lobby, the doors are opening, lets the disinfected air out, and it's going again. So the fan has to run. It's adjustable, the speed. You can either adjust it from a box on top of the car, or they will give you a remote that somebody can adjust from inside the car. And again, in combination with the Hepa filters and the germicidal light bulb, it's supposed to provide about a 99% clean air. Okay, now I am going to turn the rest of this over to Mr. Ray Alid, our president of Soluco.
Thanks, Bruce. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Ray, we can hear you fine.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you for joining us. What I'm going to talk about right now is the available buttons that are out there. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of buzz about buttons, because, you know, when people press an elevator button, that's the first contact, and that's what people want to avoid, basically touching an elevator button. And essentially what we have is few options by 2 companies. One is Dewhurst, and the local representative is Dupar, and the other one is DMG out of Italy, and the representative is MAD. Between those 2 companies, I'd say 90% of the buttons in Canada are basically supplied by Dupar and MAD. So they have a lot of coverage and a lot of availability here. So what Matt and Dupar are proposing is that if you have their buttons installed in your building, they can pretty much replace your existing buttons with the new copper and the antimicrobial buttons. And to show you what these things look like, let me share my camera here and show you these buttons. So these are the Dupar buttons. This is basically the copper one, which is the antimicrobial, and this is the antibacterial button, which is basically silver ion. And as you can see, these buttons are kind of similar to the old buttons that we had, where this is just stainless, and they just changed the surface of them so that you guys could basically take this module and install it in the existing buttons where you have their buttons now. And not to be outdone, this is the one from MAD, and it's also copper. So this is the copper from Dupar, this one is from MAD. And as you can see, they both have the surface of the button done in copper. And the claim is that the copper will kill the coronavirus within 4 hours. And the antimicrobial button is also effective in killing bacteria if you want the antibacterial solution in your elevators. Now, Dupar and MAD are both developing apps. I think MAD's already developed the app in Europe, and I will share that with you so that you can see what's going on. But essentially what you need to know is that MAD is ahead of the curve on the apps, and they have all these things available to them. So this is the European version of the app. It's called a free ride, where you basically have the app downloaded on your phone through Google or Apple. You basically, let me show you the demonstration. Press the button, you got a receiver. This will be hidden. Then you go to the car. There's a bit of lag time to connect the elevator to the phone, as you can see. And then you press the button and it works. So Dupar believes that they will have theirs in August. I would be amazed if that happens, but you know, the European model needs to be done in a North American way, and both Matt and Dupar will have to basically show us their product working in North America. But I don't think it's a stretch, given that they have the module and the connection. With respect to Matt, I don't know about Dupar yet, so we'll see what happens with them. But I'm sure Matt can be out of the gates fairly soon. Matt also developed something what I call the radar button, but they call it touchless. And the idea is to have this really nice, gorgeous button detect your finger. And the way it works is that I've seen one where they have a receiver and a transmitter, and as your finger approaches, it picks up on your finger and it knows that you're trying to press this button. Also, I've sent this version of it from MAD, and as you can see, this one does not have the radar on the side. The actual button is the radar, and that's why you don't have the peepholes. And take a look at the simulation here. So as you can see, the button works. The problem with a radar type of button is that by the time you run your finger, if you have your hand or your wrist, you could trip other buttons. And obviously what they need to do is perfect the technology so that they could predict what someone's trying to press. And I think that that's coming, and that's what they're working on right now. The radar part of it is working, or the proximity sensor is working. They just need to figure out how to pick which button someone's trying to press so that they don't have multiple buttons being tripped. Last but not least, they have something else called Toe2Go, which is the ones that you guys have all seen, I'm sure. And that's this guy here. This is basically a kick plate, and the buttons are designed to be kicked. And as you can see, when you kick it, it trips. It's about 5 to 7 pounds, I'd say, of pressure. It's pretty hefty. I see like 14 gauges stainless steel. you're not going to destroy this thing, but it's pretty heavy too. It's 1.65 pounds or 750 grams of weight. So those two buttons are pretty heavy. When you mount them, you need to mount them on a pretty strong and substantial surface, so that if someone kicks it, doesn't go through the drywall. And there are some gaps in here where you could potentially get debris or things to kind of block it. But given the substantial power of this thing and the spring in the back of it, I would say that it's not a flimsy thing where someone could destroy it. You're not going to vandalize it. Dirt and water and stuff could go inside of it, but in terms of, you know, someone kicking it and vandalizing it through their feet, I don't see that happening. Where this is going to be really good, I would say in a shorter building, like let's say 5 or 6 story building, they do have the keypad where you have, you know, like a regular phone keypad where you press the number like 1, 2 and hit enter. I don't know that we're going to get this thing to really work out very well in tall buildings, but I could see that, you know, building up to, let's say, 6 stories or 8 stories, having this kind of device, especially seniors building, would be extremely attractive for the seniors. Of course, installing it in the cab is going to be a challenge. If the cab is smaller, or if you have a swing return panel where the front of the elevator actually swings out and the buttons are behind it, so you need to find a place for it. You can't mount it on the front of the cab. So in terms of the locations and things like that, there is some challenges that you need to review on a case-by-case basis. But, you know, seeing it now, I think it's a cool idea for a shorter building, for people who have a need, like a seniors building or what have you. All right, so let's share back my thing. Next, we're going to talk about VDF. VDF came up with a copper infused elevators. So instead of the stainless steel or replacing stainless steel with copper, there's this company that developed this technology that essentially impregnates the stainless steel with copper. VDF says that this thing will not blemish and will not tarnish, and it's a pretty substantial application that could work on anything. So if you have wood, if you have metal, if you have, you know, composites, polymers, plastic, they can actually make it work. And if you look at a cab, essentially what you could do is put it on the handrail. You could put it on the front return doors. I wouldn't put it on the walls necessarily, because I don't think that that's something that people who are like germaphobe will be touching. But, you know, stopping a door from closing on you, you could extend your hands. So I could see a door being a good application. I could see the front return being a good application, and the handrail band. What I like also about this product is that, you know, if you're touching the handrail, a round handrail, your coverage is all around the handrail. So if your hand is around the handrail, you will have the ability to make sure that you're sanitizing the handrail all around, and it's not just the top surface, which you can do with UV light. So you get the full coverage that way. And let me show you what this thing looks like. So that's what the stainless steel looks like. This is from VDF, and it's like a normal color stainless steel, the same like finish. This looks like a satin type finish. It's not a number 4. It's a bit finer than that, but it's pretty nice. I don't see any tarnishes, like I said, with respect to the color or copper or a tint or hue of something else. It's straight stainless steel. So the good thing about this is that you don't have to worry about, you know, copper, for example, getting discolored and then having to replace it again. With this thing, with it being stainless steel and the application installed on it, you're not going to see it, but it's there. And if it fades away, they guarantee it won't fade away. But if it does, you're not forced to replace this handrail because of the tarnishing effect of this product. Now let's go back to my presentation and talk about the next product, which is the UVC light. There's been a lot of talk about UVC light. A lot of people want it. They think it's a good solution, good idea. And I'm not necessarily in disagreement with the concept of UVC light being great, but UVC light is like a sunlight. So the problem with sunlight is that if you leave it in the cab, and if you're follically challenged like I am, you could do some serious damage to the skin if someone's trapped in the elevator. So if you're in the elevator for 20 minutes standing underneath these UVC lights, they can hurt you. UVC light is like a black light, so you can't just change the light bulbs in all the car and have a UVC light because it'll be a dark light. So so people are thinking about a mixture of putting a regular light and then maybe a couple of LED lights would be a UVC light. But the challenge with that is, one, on the cab itself, you're not going to get the areas below the handrail, let's say, and you're not going to get the areas where there's where you drop a shadow on. So the areas that you're going to get are the ones that are plain and open. And again, if you're standing, put this people up here and the light's right there, the distance between the UVC light to the person getting the UVC exposure is very close. So if you want to install it, and if you feel that this is the right approach for your building, then make sure that the UVC light is basically getting disabled in case of an entrapment, and that it won't cause harm to the people, and maybe directed over the handrail and not so close that someone's hand could get sunburned. And moving on from the cabs to the escalators, I want to talk about EHC, Escalator Handrail Company, which is basically a global company. EHC is a Canadian company with separate from Europe. They pretty much supply the world's handrails, and anything that these guys been doing have been geared towards safety. They've done a lot of things to kind of separate themselves from being just the handrail company, although the handrail is what made them as a company. I think their focus on safety is very encouraging, because they recognize that escalators need and require a lot more safety devices to encourage people to use them and feel safe on them. So today I'm going to focus on this UVC light and the handrails and talk about the different type of handrails. But essentially our focus is there. But just to let you know, they do have other products that are safety centric. So if you want to improve or enhance the escalator, then you could look at some of their product offering, which are quite robust and substantial. So the escalator handrail UVC light is going to be located on the escalator, inside the escalator. The EHC decided they don't want to put it on the outside because of code requirements. You don't want the handrail to basically interfere with anything. I've seen some devices where the UVC is mounted on the outside and it rolls on the handrail. The problem with that is it may interfere with the handrail entry, which could be code violation. Someone could get entrapped in the device because it's outside. So with this thing being on the inside, it's out of sight, out of mind, and it's not going to cause any problem that way. But you also want to know if it's working or not. So it's very important to make sure that the device has an LED that shows you that it's working. And on that note, let me show you what this thing looks like. So this is the device, and it goes inside your handrail. Can you see it? So they have mirrors on the side. And there's 4 LEDs in here. These are UVC LEDs. These LEDs have a life of 20,000 hours, which is equivalent to 5 years. And with these UVCs projecting on a handrail, they're going to have a life, the handrail is going to have a life of about, what I calculated is about 11.4 years, or 50,000 hours. So you get 50,000 hours on the handrail with this thing if it's brand new, and you get 5 years out of this if it's brand new. So which means that if you have a brand new handrail and a brand new UVC, you're going to need to replace this thing once after 5 years, or after your 20,000 hours, before you're good to go. And again, as you see, the handle will come in, and as it runs through it, it doesn't make any contact with the lights, but it has a distance, which is a few mil from the handrail, and that does the disinfecting. So with the disinfecting on the handrail, because this is like a sunlight, it's very important to make sure that you're not burning the handrail. And it's very important to ensure as well that you're not destroying the life of the handrail. So because of that, you have two of these things, one on the top, let's say one on the bottom. You could basically clean the bacteria from a handrail every 10 cycles. So the escalator would have to run 10 times before you basically clean the handrail 100% or 99.9%. And with that said, you know, on an escalator that moves, you know, between 6,000 and 9,000 people, 10 cycles, you pretty much have, you know, close to 100, 200 people on the escalator using it. And they, you know, if there's any bacteria on the handrail, you're not going to get 100% of the infection to be gone, because as people are touching it, are actually causing the handrail to get disinfected. And having said that, the alternative would be to add more of these things to reduce the cycle from, you know, let's say 5 to right away. But the issue with that is obviously that if you do that, your handrail goes from 11.4 years to maybe 5 years or 7 years. One thing I strongly recommend is whoever installs this thing, you got to make sure that they'll warrant the handrail, because the handrail, if it's exposed to a lot of sunlight, it will crack, it'll get damaged, and we want to make sure that this does not happen. And if it does happen, because, you know, of the normal operation, that the elevator company will protect your warranty and replace it at their cost. And if there's someone coming over to maintain the equipment, that they'll honor the warranty as well. And the other thing is, this is a demo model, but the newer models will have an indicator light. So in the escalator, when it's running, you'll know if the device is working and operating or not. Because this is hidden, you're not going to know if the lights are on or not. So you really want to know if someone's actually activating it, if this unit is active and it's working or not. And that's why you want to know if the device is working or not. Let me go back to the presentation. Okay, so with that said, we talked about the cycle of handles to make it work, and that's why there's only 2. If you put 3 or 4, obviously that reduces the cycle, but it also reduces the life of the handrail. The next thing I want to talk about is the handrails that are designed to work with the UVC. Basically, there's 4 or 5 different handrails that AHC has that were compatible with the UVC. So pretty much almost any handrail could work with the UVC. If it's an older handrail and it cracks faster, that's normal, because usually with time, all handrails eventually fail. So if you're ordering new handrails, you want a UVC film on it to protect it even more, and that would be ideal. The best solution, in my opinion, would be to buy a new handrail if your handrail is older with the device. So you're having a combination of 2 units. You have a new handrail, you have a new UV device, and then you can basically measure the life of the UVC lights and the handrail at the same time. And it should be documented in the logbook somewhere so that you have evidence of what's going on. Next, I want to talk about their basically what they call an AM rail, which is basically a special handrail device with antibacterial in it. So if you don't want to buy the UVC because you don't want to replace these units, or you don't want to deal with the aspect of UVC lights, you can basically buy this other product, which they have the antimicrobial added in the handrail. So when they manufacture the handrail, they put in the components with the antimicrobial components, and they mix it together, and they produce the handrail with both these components. So this is not a surface thing where you can basically rub off or destroy. It's basically built into the handrail. So as you wear down the handrail, let's say the handrail wears down, you'll get the next film below and below and below, because the whole handrail is manufactured with the antibacterial devices into it. So that's a good thing as well, because you can basically be assured that you have antimicrobial film inside the handrail as you go on. Next, I want to point out that Solucor did publish a bunch of brochures. They're located here on solucor.com brochures, and these things are essentially gonna allow you to download basically our EPS files. So this is basically a vector file that you could turn into a poster, or you could turn into a small flyer that you could download. There's different versions of it, and that's basically telling people what to do in the elevator. If you need it, it's an available resource. As well, we have other brochures online as well as our standard services that we have. With the end of my presentation, I'm going to turn over to Leo and to questions if you guys have. Thank you for your time, and thanks for listening to me.
Thank you, Ray, and thank you, Michael and Bruce, for that really important information. It's really good to see what products are coming into the marketplace that are going to help prevent the spread of COVID. And we're looking forward, if you need anything or have any site-specific questions. Every building is obviously going to have its own set of challenges and its own needs. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to any one of our team, and we'll be happy to help you guide through the entire scenario and help you work it out. Does anyone have, at this time, we'd like to open up the floor for questions. If you have any questions, please take yourself off mute, and we'll be happy to help answer them for you. Any questions? Okay. Michael, Bruce, Ray, does anybody have any closing comments? I think
Yeah.
we covered everything that we were looking at. Ray?
Yeah, what I want to say is, there's always seems to be like a race to buy these products, and there's nothing wrong with buying
Unknown participant is now
product
joining.
for safety, obviously. But what you want to do when you're buying a product for your elevator is make sure you're buying a product that's going to last for the life of the elevator or escalator, for that matter. You want to make sure that you're buying something that's not going to be like tarnished or damaged. Like, my concern is, like, for example, copper buttons. The longevity of these buttons is of concern to me, because if you buy copper buttons and they don't last and they get tarnished, now you have to basically spend a whole bunch of money to basically fix this and make sure that the buttons are basically presentable in your building, because obviously buttons are everywhere. And rather than this kind of solution, going with something like the app, in my opinion, would be a better solution, better approach, because it's kind of taking care of the things long term, and you can basically transfer it to new elevators, you do mods, and so on and so forth. So an app solution is better than kind of a copper button solution, or even those handrails from EHC, VDF. This is something that is not going to tarnish, and that's why I like that. If in 10 years from now we don't care about any bacterial infections, because we have no bacteria or diseases that causes fear, for example, then you're good. But I mean, obviously there'll always be people that are worried about germs, and I think this pandemic is going to change our feelings of how we interact with bacteria and even others. So if you're buying the product, you want to buy a product that's going to be there for the long term, that's going to last. And if it's going to be replaced, it's going to be replaced as part of the normal wear and tear, like these brushes, but not going to be replaced because it's tarnished or it's damaged and it doesn't look right.
Ray, I believe we have a question from Tim Hayashi. Tim?
Hi, Leo. Yeah, great presentation, guys. It's just a question about the app. Is the app going to be like a standalone application, or will it be able to talk to our card access systems in our buildings? Because, some floors may be 24/7 card access. Like, would the app basically eliminate that portion of, having having the security companies, and all the equipment needed for programming the elevators?
That's a great question, Tim. And the way that the wiring configuration is coming out of it is it's coming out of the buttons. So it would actually be like pressing a button through the app. So if you look at the wiring configuration, which I did, you can see that the buttons that go to the elevator cab from the button, they go, one side goes to the elevator cab, one side goes to the app. So the app will be nothing more than simulating a press button. I'm sure as this thing progresses, there'll be some security integration as part of that. But to create a security integration is going to be very difficult in the short term because of the proprietary natures of both applications. So right now, what you do is you press the button and you swipe your card, or you swipe your card and press the button. So that will still go hand in hand. It's not going to be without, but I'm sure down the road, as the popularity of these apps basically take over and people were using more of their phones, that would happen. The other thing to say is on destination dispatch, the Bluetooth apps that the elevator companies give you will be integrated into security, because the destination dispatch elevator system is already integrated into security. So when they press their buttons, all that is done and is basically taken care of. So it just gets integrated right there. So the short answer is, with destination dispatch, the phone apps will absolutely take care of security. With the regular traditional elevators, they will not for the short term, but I'm sure down the road, as this thing develops, that they will be done.
Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Jeff Case has a question. Jeff?
Yes, this question is for Bruce. The voice activation, I think not only that, but the app, I foresee that's where we're going to be heading. Obviously, when people get into the elevator, there's going to be multiple destinations requested. Does that voice activation have to be done one at a time, or will it capture more than one car call at a time?
You can put in as many calls as necessary. So if a second person gets on the elevator with you, you could say, elevator, take me to floor 4, and then it's elevator, take me to floor 6, and it'll work. Because we did that test. We had more people in the elevator than we should have, and we were able to go to, I think it was a 7-stop elevator. We were able to get it to go to 4 places because that's how many people we were.
I do like the voice activation, because even after maybe we find a vaccine for COVID, this would be something that would be beneficial, in seniors facilities, etc. So I really like this application. Thank you for the information.
You're welcome.
Great. We have another question here. If you could recommend one cost-effective way to provide assurance to tenants that elevators are safer and cleaner, what would you suggest?
Right now, I would say that the VDF solution, the copper infused stainless steel, is the best thing out there. Like, the UV light's not going to work. The fans I have challenges with because of the fact that when the door opens, the environment inside the cab is basically pretty much vacated. So the only thing is touch then. So what would make the elevator touch work so that you don't have any transfer of microbial between people? I would say that copper infused stainless steel is brilliant because it does create that environment where you could touch the stainless steel and you have the copper protection, and then you don't have to worry about cleaning it as often as you would normal surfaces. And at the same time, you don't have to worry about discoloration where you have to replace your cab every 5 years or so. So it's the best of both worlds in that you have the protection that you need, you have the stainless steel look and feel, and you're not losing anything. And you could use that application on anything, not just the stainless steel. You could put it on the plastic, you put it on anything. So in terms of cost effective, it's going to double your cost on a normal cab. So I don't know that it's cheap, but in terms of like one solution that takes care of everything, that'd be one. And then down the road, as you modernize, you'd look at doing an app for the buttons so that the buttons are actually getting on an app. And then that way you've covered both ends fairly, cost effectively.
Great. And to add to Ray's comment, Catherine, with respect to your question with respect to cleaner, we actually put a video on our LinkedIn site about what cleaners could be used around buttons to ensure that you're maintaining their integrity. So if you don't have access to LinkedIn or you don't have access to our YouTube, please reach out to me, and I can send you that link to let you know what cleaners you could use around your buttons to make sure that they're as clean as possible and gives people that feeling that elevators are okay to use touching the buttons.
Great, thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions? Okay, so we've made a recording of this webinar. We're going to be putting that back up on our website for those of you who want to see something again or want to pass this on to someone who you think would benefit from it. We will put this up on our website. If you have any further questions or comments, as we said before, please don't hesitate to contact any one of our representatives here at Solucor, and we'd be happy to help you on your way. If there are no other questions, that is going to be the end of the webinar. Thank you very much on behalf of the organization for joining us, and we look forward to connecting with you soon.
Thanks, Leo.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
Thank you. It was excellent.
Thank you very much.
Is now exiting.
Thank you, Leo.
No problem.
Multiple people are now exiting. Multiple people are now exiting.